that I'm thrown back 50 yards. My plate carrier had been blasted off me, my helmet was blasted off me, and my weapon had broken into three parts. My M4 was destroyed. I'm initially called up as KIA.
When you enlist and take the oath of service, you take the oath by yourself, but you don't take it on your own. The oath implicates not only your family and friends, but also your future spouse and children. It implicates people you haven't met yet, and, in the case of a distant enemy, people you may never meet. When a soldier swears to defend the country and Constitution from all enemies, there's no way to know how they'll be asked to answer that promise. And that is what makes it a courageous vow. When Brian Avalos joined the Army in his mid-20s, he was on his own. But by the time he left, struggling with the after effects of a traumatic brain injury, he would have to make use of a support system that spread well beyond the other soldiers with whom he served.
When I first woke up and I first realized what was going on, I asked my dad 100 times, what's going on, what happened? And he would tell me, and I would break down crying. I'd go maybe a little bit, Kimmy, what the hell's going on here? What happened? And then she'd be forced to tell me again, and I'd break down crying again. And that was probably the hardest thing for my parents and Kimmy, is that they had to pretty much break my heart a good number of times in that short amount of time when I came back.
What is true bravery? What makes a hero a hero? Tested by the worries of what's happening at home, thousands of miles away, and the reality of what you're facing here and now. When your life is in danger every second, and it's either kill or be killed. From Wondery and Incongruity Media, this is Anthony Russo, and this is War. You know what's not smart? Using your relatives to fill in at work while you look for staff. But you know what is smart? Going to ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar to hire the right person. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you, it finds them for you. Its powerful matching technology scans thousands of resumes, identifies people with the right skills, education, and experience for your job, and actively invites them to apply, so you get qualified candidates fast. That's why ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the US. This rating comes from hiring sites on Trustpilot with over 1,000 reviews. And right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar. That's ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar. ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. It isn't much of a secret that serving in the military can fast-track a soldier into law enforcement. For people who feel like they're called to serve in that capacity, a stint in the military makes perfect sense. You learn to stay fit, to use weapons, and to keep a cool head under pressure. For Brian Avalos, it kind of was a no-brainer. Avalos had wanted to be a cop since he was a kid. His father had served as a Marine in Vietnam, so for much of his adolescence and into his teenage years, Avalos planned on joining the Marines, serving 4 years and then becoming a cop. But when it came time to graduate from high school, he had discovered that he'd miscalculated.
So I left school, and everyone graduated, I left. I did a couple random jobs that I just didn't see myself going anywhere with, so I decided that if I wanted to correct the mistakes that I made prior, now was the time. I actually went back to an adult school. So I got my diploma, I didn't get my GED or anything, so I mean, that was kind of cool, I guess.
Avalos realized he had wasted 5 years knocking around and generally not doing much with himself. After taking a hard look at where his life was going, compared to how it could have gone if he had just made the effort, he enlisted in the Army with an eye on becoming an MP. Even though it looked as if the war was winding down, Avalos hoped he still could get in on the action. If he couldn't, at least he would have a trade that he could be proud of. He would learn the ins and outs of policing and then apply them once his contract with the Army was over. By the time he was most of the way through basic training, though, that perception had begun to change. You see, growing up and through all his dead-end jobs, and even when he was in the adult high school, No one counted on him, and he didn't count on anyone. But that's not how it works in the Army.
It's taxing on the mind, and that I make a wrong step and I could fucking get myself killed, or worse, my buddy standing next to me killed. Even though I was older at the time, it's still a lot to take in that, okay, well, I'm training to go to war. I joined in a time of war, so I knew very well that I'm going to go to war. But still, the fact of training to do it, training to kill and possibly die, it weighs on you a little bit. That feeling of life is either can be taken real quick, taken away from you, taken away from someone else.
By 2010, the protocol for training MPs had shifted. Early in the war, MPs still were being trained primarily in garrison patrolling, with combat training not quite as an afterthought, but certainly not emphasized. Prior to the War on Terror, MPs had focused primarily on being police officers in army bases. By the time Avalos started his MP training, the focus had shifted to combat. And as it came to an end, he was excited about the prospect of going and fighting in Afghanistan. So imagine his surprise when he instead was shipped to Germany to be a garrison cop. More surprising still was that was where he encountered his first fatality of the war.
We're all at the MP station, and we get a phone call that there was a dead soldier in the basement. He was hanging from the basement. So I'm still pretty new. So we fly over there, find out where it's at, run downstairs, and I still see it to this day. There's the wife, neighbors. There was a couple people right around there. I don't know, there's just pipes running everywhere. This is old World War II barracks, so it's all really old and not necessarily up to date type stuff. And there's a dog leash wrapped around there, coming down, and a guy's hanging from a fucking rafters. It took me a second. I was like, oh shit, okay. So I was with the other officer at the time, Moore. We brought him down. We started doing anything we could do to at least try to bring him back. You know, we're sitting there, we're doing chest compressions, checking for airways and stuff, all to no avail. I mean, the guy died. He was long dead.
Working pointlessly to support the pretense that a dead soldier wasn't a lost cause, seeing the after effects of combat, the wounded as well as the soldiers who had ended their lives, didn't dissuade Avalos that he had chosen the right path. He was dating another soldier, Kim, who had a son, Anthony, from a previous relationship, and they were starting to think about building a life together in the Army rather than using it as a stepping stone. He saw that he could make a life in the Army as an MP, that he could make a life in Germany or really anywhere he and Kim and Anthony could be transferred together. But deciding whether to make a career of the service or to use it as access to a better life after the Army was a separate thing altogether from his desire to at least get into the fight, to have his chance at war. So when a sister company returned from their deployment in Iraq and began gearing up to deploy to Afghanistan, Avalos asked for a transfer.
So there I am, about 2 years into the Army now, and I'm like, shit, man, I joined to go to war. I'm sure as hell not gonna let these guys go again when I haven't been once yet at all. So I talked to some of the leadership. My drill sergeant, who was in basic, was in our company. He showed up to our company a couple months before that. We're at a welcoming get together for the new soldier coming in, and there's Drill Sergeant Walker. Yeah, I actually went to him to say, hey, Drill Sergeant, I want to deploy with you guys. Can we see about changing my orders so I can go with you guys? And he helped me out, and we switched it over. So I went from a garrison MP to all of a sudden going to be going to a combat MP.
That his former drill sergeant would actively help him transition into a combat role only served to focus Avalos' determination. Kim already had done a tour in Iraq herself, so she understood his need to get into combat. His mother was a little less sanguine about it, but what he hadn't told either of them was that he wasn't afraid of dying in combat. Being maimed or permanently disabled in combat, though, that was a thought he just couldn't bear.
Before I deployed, I remember thinking and telling people, like, you know, I'd rather check out than come home all fucked up. I remember telling my mom, I was like, Mom, don't worry, I'll be fine. I have a better chance of coming back just fine there. I have more of a chance of getting killed in a car accident than getting killed over there. I was like, don't worry, everything will be fine.
In fact, as he prepared to deploy, getting killed was the last thing on Avalos' mind. His father was an infantryman in Vietnam, and though he didn't talk about it much, he was clearly proud of his combat decorations. What weighed on the younger Avalos was the notion that he might not get his chance to earn his own combat badge.
And I knew that I could never get a CIB. I knew that because I didn't have that job, I couldn't get that. But I wanted a CAB. I wanted a combat action badge. And my squad leader, who was a ranger that had switched his jobs from infantryman to a cop, he had the CIB. And I told him, I was like, hey, Sergeant Murray, at some point, I want that little black thing on my chest too. I want to know that we've done something here.
By the time they landed in Afghanistan in April of 2011, Brian Avalos would have more chances to get a combat badge than he ever could have imagined. You know what's not smart? Job sites that overwhelm you with tons of the wrong resumes. But you know what is smart? ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't wait for the right candidates to find you. ZipRecruiter finds them for you. Its powerful matching technology scans thousands of resumes, identifies people with the right skills, education, and experience for your job, and actively invites them to apply, so you get qualified candidates fast. No more sorting through the wrong resumes, no more waiting for the right candidates to apply. It's no wonder ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the US. This rating comes from hiring sites on Trustpilot with over 1,000 reviews. And right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar. That's ZipRecruiter.com/THISISWAR. ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Even when you're a soldier in a war zone, there is a particularity to your first combat experience. It's been described as being shaken awake from a doze in an emergency. When the shooting starts, you have a sense of what's going on, but the full realization is half a step behind. And there's no way to overcome that. Training will only get you to respond in the half second after you realize you're under fire. Before that, you're on your own. After it, though, it never happens again. The first time you take fire, like the first time you're blown up by an IED, permanently removes the confusion associated with a new experience from the equation. And it's probably just as well.
We're kind of lost driving somewhere. I don't remember where we're going, but we get lost, we get turned around, we're going off-road. All of a sudden, and you see these shots coming, these tracers coming at you, and you're kind of like, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing here? Is this really happening? And before you can really realize what you're doing or what you're seeing, and you're automatically calling things up on the radio, talking to your gunners on position and area where it's at. And then there's Ethel. We had a 50 cal, and he's just letting loose on that 50, and that's a sound you'll never forget. The 50 just humming above you. It's a badass fucking weapon.
The thought that follows the realization that combat has started isn't about how you're going to do. Those thoughts are for before. You don't worry about safety or even about retaliation in a personal way. You let go of your own wants and worries and let muscle memory, that automatic response you've been practicing daily since you first set foot into basic training, be your guide.
So a RPG gets fired and it goes in front of my truck and behind the truck in front of us. It goes in between us and it hits an AUP truck and it detonates on the truck. So our medic jumps out of the truck and starts busting ass over there, hauling ass over that way to go take care of the guys, take care of the Afghan police. So we all immediately put down a suppressive fire for him and cover him. And he was pretty banged up. He was pretty fucked up at the time. I look back there and he's bloody. He's surprisingly not missing any body parts or anything, but he looks like he's out of it. So we've got the AUP in the back of our truck, our medic on the back of our truck working on him and stuff. We break contact and we're going back because we need to take this guy back to the hospital.
The Afghan soldier was going to live and actually wasn't in awful shape. After he recovered, he returned to thank the MPs for helping save his life. In the immediate aftermath of the battle, though, once they were safely back in the COP, the soldiers took stock, swapping stories and coming to terms with the fact that over the course of a few hours, their combat training went from hypothetical to practical. And with it came the confidence that's born of seeing just how well your training has served you. and maybe a little something to pin on your uniform.
We are kind of all just sitting around talking and stuff and decompressing what we just went through, what we all just went through. And my squire looks at me and goes, hey Avalos, that little black thing, you just got it today. And I'm like, oh, well, pretty cool, I guess. I was pretty excited, but I don't know. Little did I know we'd be getting a lot more of it eventually. It was kind of more just of a fucking get our monkey off our back. And okay, now that we've experienced it, we know what's out there. And we know what to do with it. We know how to handle it for next time. So it was good that we got it done with. We knew we could handle it from then on.
Knowing you can handle something and wanting to handle it are two totally different things. That attack was just the first in what would be a regular day-to-day aspect of life on patrol in Afghanistan. And as spring turned into summer, it only got more intense. By 2011, the Taliban had a pretty good idea of how to harass U.S. forces. They would try and pick off small parts of patrols and, instead of engaging in firefights afterwards, they would disappear, leaving the quick response forces running out to battle, only to find the dead and wounded in destroyed vehicles.
You know, it's frustrating the fact that they can see us, they know what they're going to do. They're watching us from who knows how far out, and then they attack. But you never see a person really. There's nothing really that'll ever explain, I can ever use to explain or even want to explain watching someone be blown up and blown to pieces. It's not something that is easy to even think about. You just learn how quickly life can be taken away from anybody. I don't know.
On July 5th, 2011, Staff Sergeant Joshua A. Throckmorton, Specialist Jordan C. Schumann, and Specialist Preston J. Suter were killed by an IED. But when he left as part of the QRF responding to the explosion, Avalos had no idea what he was going to find. As they approached the wreckage, he recognized it was one of his company's detachments, and he knew it was bad. He didn't find out how bad until later.
And we found out who it was. And there was no contact to be done at that time. Everyone had kind of broken contact. It's kind of surreal. You're sitting there. I remember when we were still in Bagram, and I was bullshitting with Schumann. We were just talking and bullshitting, and then all of a sudden, there I am at his wake, and he's not with us anymore. You start to think about what they're leaving behind. Sergeant Throckmorton, he was relatively new to our company before we deployed, so I didn't know a whole bunch about him. I knew he was married and had kids. I knew Schumann. I didn't know him well, or I knew him well enough, and I knew he was married with a new baby. And then Suter, he was a younger guy. He was still a kid. There's 3 guys that are younger that had not fucking deserved to die yet, not deserve to have their life ended. They're way too young to be gone, and I hope that their children have a good upbringing and have a positive life. Not a day goes by that I don't think about those 3 and the sacrifice that they gave to us. It was a hard day for us.
Suter had been married in March, just before they deployed to Afghanistan. When someone's deployed, you know that communications can be spotty, but for people in uniform, there's an additional knowledge to live with. Every time there's a communications blackout, which connotes an injury or death, all Kim could do was hope that it wasn't Brian and wait to see whether she was right. For his part, Avalos just tried to keep his mind focused on his work and on staying alive.
You know, you quickly remember how precious life is and how quickly it can be gone. It's fast. And then all of a sudden you're back at it. And you can't dwell on it too much because that's only going to hurt yourself and hurt your other guys with you. So you just got to get back to work. And it's probably better that way, that you don't have a whole lot of time to sit there and dwell and be sad and depressed, and you just got to get back to work. They're always on your mind, and they're always in the back of your head, and just praying to God that you don't become the next one that's going to meet them.
Mid-tour leave couldn't have come at a better time for Avalos. After 5 months of fighting, losing his buddies, and participating in what he often saw as the pointless exercise of training Afghan police, most of whom didn't seem thrilled to participate, it was good to get home. Avalos did his best to leave Afghanistan behind and had at least a little luck, but shaking off a war isn't something one does over the course of a long weekend.
It was beautiful to get to spend time with normal people again and not be worried about where everything is and where your fucking shit is and the guy over there is trying to kill you and there's a bomb in the street. But of course it's still going on in the back of your head like, fuck, where's my weapon at? You wake up and you think, okay, where's it at? Shit. No, it's still there. I'm over here now. As you're driving, you're looking and scanning the area.
Since Avalos had a general idea when his mid-tour leave started, he and Kim had coordinated so they could meet in California. It had been a long 5 months for her, especially since she was privy to the blackouts, but since she wasn't next of kin, not on the list of people who would be contacted in case of an emergency. She very much was looking forward to seeing that he was safe with her own eyes. There were a couple of travel delays, but eventually they were able to spend what would turn out to be the shortest 2 weeks of their lives together.
The beach is one of her favorite places to be, so I took her to gorgeous Southern California beach, and we went to a lifeguard tower number 8, and we're sitting there talking, just watching the water, watching the sun go down and stuff, and I kind of stand up and kind of like, I look like I'm stretching. I kind of go in front of her and I kneel down. You know, I go to one knee and bring the ring out. Kim, will you make me the happiest man in the world and be my wife? A little pain in the ass. She goes, maybe. And as quickly as she said it, she started smiling. She said, of course I will. I was like, oh, you. I gave her a big hug, so how much I loved her. Gave her a kiss. And she actually went back to Germany the following day. So we got to spend, 12 hours together as an engaged couple. And then she was back on a plane to go back to Germany. I was still in the States one more day. And then I was going back to Afghanistan.
It was one of the last memories Avalos would have before waking up in the hospital. He doesn't have any strong memories of boarding the plane to Afghanistan, landing there, or catching up with his platoon. There are snippets, but that's where his pre-injury life ended, as far as he can recall. The 2 months that followed have been almost completely erased by his injury, but he remembers getting engaged, which is a genuine piece of good luck. The story about the most pivotal moment in his life, though, the day that changed his life's direction permanently, is something he only heard about. It's a story told secondhand with commentary. I love that Dollar Shave Club has everything I need to look, feel, and smell my best. What I love even more is the fact that I never have to go to a store. That's because 1, DSC delivers everything I need right to my door, and 2, they keep me fully stocked up on what I use so I don't run out. Here's how it works. Dollar Shave Club has everything you need to get ready, no matter what you're getting ready for. They have you covered head to toe for your hair, your skin, your face, you name it, they have it. And now they have this new program where they automatically keep you stocked up on the products you use. You determine what you want and when you want it, and it shows up right at your door from once a month to once every 6 months. For example, I go through about a bottle of Amber Lavender body cleanser every 4 months or so setting an automatic order just makes sense. The best part is I still get a monthly reminder when my order is set to ship, so I can add it in if I go through it faster or decide to try out something else, like maybe the DSC toothpaste. Plus, with their handsome discount, the more you buy, the more you save. And right now they've got a bunch of starter sets you can try for just $5, like their oral care kit. After that, the restock box ships regular sized products at a regular price. So what are you waiting for? Get your starter set for just $5 now at dollarshaveclub.com/thisiswar. That's dollarshaveclub.com/thisiswar. dollarshaveclub.com/thisiswar. Avalos returned to Afghanistan with a vision for himself and the future he hadn't really ever had before. No longer particularly interested in using the army as a stepping stone, he'd begun the process for becoming a detective in the MPs, investigating felonies by or against army personnel. He and Kim would get married, remain in the army, and travel wherever they needed. He was confident in himself and in his future and anxious to get right back to work. He speculates that's why he volunteered to lead a patrol on that day, August 31st, 2011.
We're told that a IED is in X location. Now, we had been to this area before, and we knew that it was a shitty area, and it was really tight to drive through, and it just sucked. I was still a specialist, but I had become a full team leader. All the leaders got together, and we talked about the best way to get there. It was my gunner, Ethel, myself, and Briscoe behind me, my other gunner, Briscoe behind me. I elected for us to be up on point that day. I was trying to send a statement. I could handle this, I could take care of my guys, and that I was up for being a team leader, that I could handle this challenge. So I elected for my guys to take point. So we're walking, and it was a command wire. So that means someone was watching us, and they hit the button, and the blast went off.
Today, still, it's odd to think about someone choosing to detonate him. It's a very personal and a completely dispassionate decision all at once. The Taliban fighter didn't want to kill Brian Avalos per se, but he definitely wanted to kill one specific guy in his line of sight. There was no use waiting for the next group of soldiers because it was quite possible Avalos would discover the command wire if he got much closer. The bomb was planted on the left side of the narrow road, and Avalos took the worst of it.
I'm thrown back 50 yards. I think they were being kind to me. I landed in like a muddy area. I want to say it was in a shit river. My vest had been blasted off me. My helmet was blasted off me, and my weapon had broken into three parts. I'm initially called up as KIA. My buddy Lanning called me up as KIA, and then he saw me moving and kind of struggling to breathe and gurgle. I don't know. Ethel, I've seen pictures of him. He was pretty bloody. Briscoe behind me, he got the concussion of it that really got him and shook his brain up. But thankfully, I took it the worst. I'm just happy that I took the brunt of it and the other two guys didn't. I just know that I'm glad it was me and not them.
This isn't bravado or cliche, although we hear things like it all the time. But put yourself in his shoes. Avalos knows exactly what he went through to recover, the difficulties he still has years after the explosion, that he still will have for the rest of his life. Oppose that with the knowledge that, brash and fresh back from R&R, enjoying a new leadership role and the promise of a married life to follow, you insist that your fire team take the lead and survive the attack unscathed. How much more difficult would it have been to shoulder the burden of that decision, to watch your guys blown to pieces, or to see them go through the painful, frustrating rehab you had to endure just to learn to make yourself understood again? Or to worry about a young fiancé who committed to marry a man who intended to make a life out of soldiering? Pain can be a lot easier to take than guilt. Today, Avalos jokes that the only time he got to fire his weapon during battle was when he squeezed the trigger after being detonated. Had it not been him, he would have done more than that.
They load myself, Ethel, and our medic, Doc O'Brien, into another truck, and they're driving us back to the AUP station we just came from. He's got to perform an emergency tracheotomy on me. He tells Ethel to hold my head, hold his head, and he cuts my neck. And I've talked to Ethel about it, and he said that fucking messed with him a little bit. That I can understand it. It's kind of fucking creepy. So now it looks on my neck that I tried to take myself out and just did a horrible job and failed.
It's important to remember that Avalos said he didn't want to come back all fucked up, that he believed death would be better than permanent injuries like scarring, missing parts, or a TBI that screws with the way you process words. But if there is a common theme among people who have made the effort to overcome the struggles that are tied to living through the traumas of war, it's that no one understands their capacity for pain and recovery until they've successfully endured it. The same, of course, could be said for the families. Back in Germany, Kim had no idea that the blackout was for Avalos. Since she wasn't next of kin, Brian's parents were notified, but she wasn't. In fact, his parents had to sign a waiver just to get her visiting privileges. She rushed home as fast as she could. Upon arriving, she discovered that, in addition to significant physical injuries, Brian had severe brain damage, and it wasn't clear at first if or how much he would come back from it.
So I wake up and I realize that I can't see on my left eye. I can't really move my left arm. My back hurts. I broke pretty much every bone in my left arm, from the hand up. Shrapnel went through my eye pro and cut the cord from my eye to my brain. I had broken my back, and I had 3 compression fractures in my back. My spleen got punctured, and I had a bunch of chipped teeth. See, this is hard. This is hard for me to say. I had to make the choice to have my eye cut out, an enucleation, I believe it's called, because whatever was in my eye was killing it, and they told me that they're worried that that disease will transfer over to my other eye, my good eye, and kill that eye as well. So it's kind of a tough decision, but it was an easy decision. Okay, let's just cut the fucking dead eye out then, and I'll save the good eye I have. I'd rather have one eye than fucking no eyes. I went into surgery to have my eye fucking removed. That's still weird to say even though it's fucking 7 years past now.
How could it not be weird to say? Very few of us ever have to utter sentences like, "So I told them to cut my eye out." More than that, Avalos would spend the next few weeks relearning over and over from Kim and his parents that he was back stateside after being blown up. You can appreciate the urge to surrender. Over his 2 years of rehabilitation, he had to find new ways of making himself understood and remastering basic tactics for walking as well as for conversation. Throughout the earliest parts of it, he worried about his relationship with Kim, who had to go back to Germany to continue her own tour. Just as he hadn't signed up with the intention of enduring a severe injury, neither had she consented to marry a man whose injuries would be long-term and, at the time, were unpredictable. Of course, Kim was in the army just like he was, with the same oaths and the same attitude. The pair decided to have a double proxy wedding. He from his rehabilitation in Palo Alto, California, and she from her duty station in Germany. Once it was official, they both could be deployed together at Avalos' new assignment at the Warrior Transition Battalion in Fort Lewis. He genuinely thought he would be able to reintegrate into the service and still hoped to be an investigator for the military police. But it didn't take too long to realize that his injuries would prevent that.
Well, besides the obvious stuff, the eye and the arm, the TBI is what actually got me out of the army. I'm 100% disabled now from that. I know that I am different by when I talk and I stumble over words and mumble words. My brain is going so fast that it won't come out quick enough. I can't slow it down to talk normal so that I'm easily understood. And that's an ongoing learning experience in itself right there, is how to handle the situation, what we can do to make things different or better.
Even as he tried to stay in, he knew it was a lost cause, and eventually he relented and left the army. Avalos was really uncertain about his future. He felt alone and more than a little out of sorts, but he was fortunate enough to be married to a soldier with no patience for self-pity or for surrender.
She doesn't let me use any of my injuries or she doesn't let me use anything as an excuse. She holds me responsible and holds me accountable for all of my shit, which is good. Thank God she doesn't baby me or allow me to fucking whine and cry. And she challenges me every day to be a better person, and I thank her for that so much. I can never be the person she deserves, and for the amount of shit she's done for me, I can never pay her back. She's helped me so much, it's unbelievable.
Time and again, we're reminded that we have no idea what we really would do given particular situations. We know what the present us wants for the future us, but by the time we get to the future, we've changed enough to know that those two things aren't always the same. Avalos eventually got into law enforcement as a corrections officer. He's happy in his work, but the real victory is in his family.
I thank God that I didn't check out that day, that I did come back home. I left some things over there, but I wasn't ready to be done with life. I had a lot of shit still ahead of me that I wanted to do, and thank God I wasn't killed that day.
Before he went to war, Brian Avalos didn't understand how deeply he would need his family's support. He didn't envision a life with kids or a spouse who was too tough to let him quit. It wasn't a future he would have selected because he didn't know it was possible or even available to him. Nothing happened the way he thought it would, but Avalos is okay with that. He understands that we all need support. The real challenge is enduring what it takes to recognize that fact. Next time on This Is War.
All I'm doing is running from body to body, doing what I can. I do have the sense to roll the obviously dead over on their bellies so that I know not to go back to them.
Are you a combat veteran, or do you know one with a story to tell? Reach out to us at stories@thisiswar.com with your dates and branch of service, as well as a brief description of the experience that you would like to share. If you like the show, you can help support us by visiting our sponsors or by leaving a 5-star review wherever you're listening right now. This Is War was written by me, Anthony Russo, and produced by Incongruity Media. Executive producer Hernan Lopez for Wondery.